Today I want to help you with that dreaded situation when you finish a garment that has a lining around an open neckline and the lining shows to the right side. I was working on my holiday dress sew along during FabFit Fridays, and I just want to show you here. This is the dress, and you can see it's got a pretty open neckline. Okay, I took it off of my ditto form so I could show you the inside, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But I was working on it, and when I put it on after attaching, sewing the lining to the bodice, the lining was pulling out to the right side, and you can see here I have a pretty lively lining. I picked this lining because this black fabric is a very firm knit with mechanical stretch, and this is a very high quality cotton jersey with lycra in it that when I turned it on the lengthwise grain, it provided a similar amount of stretch. Now what I want to show you here is when you work with two different fabrics or stretchy fabrics, this can happen, and I think it could also happen with woven. But what I want to show you here is this photo. I took a picture of it while it was on my ditto form so I could show you. Notice the left side looks great. The right side, you can see the lining. And that's because I fixed one side and I need to fix the other side. And then I'm going to show you how to adjust your pattern so you don't have this problem. So first of all, I have to give credit to one of my subscribers who was in my FabFit Friday, when I was working on this dress. And what I thought was, if I created two little pleats here, it would pull the lining back under. That's what I thought. That was my first inclination to fix the situation. So I did do that, and what happened was it made it worse. So while I was working on that, I want to give her gold stars and 100% credit for this because it didn't occur to me. And so basically, after I unsewed the pleat I made, she emailed me a photo which I put up on the screen to show, and what she was saying was, instead of reducing or taking in the lining to pull it back, the reason why it was curling out to the right side is because when you put two sleeves in a garment and you put it on your body, it pulls everything open like this. So the armholes pull at the bodice, and you need more fabric in the lining to keep it from curling. So to test the theory, what I did was I actually cut a slit in the lining right here, and then I just put a scrap of the same knit underneath and I zigzagged it on. And as you could see from the photo, I'll put it up again, notice how that side lays nice and flat now because the lining is not pulling from the inside. Now I thought if I pulled it tighter, it would pull it back under. But in actuality, what happened was it made it curl more to the outside. So adding that extra width here fixed the situation. So to fix the other side, and I'm not going to do it now, but to fix the other side, I'm just going to cut an opening here, and I'm going to fill it with fabric like this, and then my neckline will be happy. And then this beautiful, my lining, which is so different from the outside of my fabric, will stay as a private fun fact for me, and it won't be, out in public. So that was the idea behind this, that I could make this lining and it would be a fun detail on the inside, but I really don't want it showing on the outside. So basically, if you have a garment you've already sewn together and the lining is pulling, especially here, like right on the sides of an open neckline, try slashing your lining, put it back on, you know what I mean? And you can even put some painter's tape or masking tape on the opening, and just so you can kind of gauge how much you need to open it to get it to lay flat. So this is how you would fix something if you've already sewn it up and you want to fix it. Before I show you, the fix for this, I just want to point out the first thing you always want to do when you're attaching a lining to a neckline is understitch. And sometimes that understitching is all you need to prevent the fabric from showing. I think in this case it's happening because I'm working with two different knit fabrics that have different stretch, slightly different stretch, and it's a little bit challenging. But I just want to zoom in here and show you, understitching is when you stitch through both seam allowances and the lining or facing fabric. And what that does is it encourages the lining to stay to the inside. So that's the first thing you should always do to an opening like a neckline, is understitch around the edges. When I understitch, I gently pull the lining away from the garment fabric as I'm sewing, and that creates a little tension that also helps the lining stay, on the inside where it should be. So that's the first step to, making sure your lining doesn't show. So now let me show you how to adjust your pattern to reflect this change where I added more width in here to prevent the lining from pulling on the fashion fabric and curling it to the outside. Okay, so now let's look at the pattern piece here. So this was my original front bodice, and I cut two out. I cut one for the fashion fabric and one for the lining, and I traced the shape of the neckline here to show you what to do. So what I would do, if you've got this sort of situation where you're making a snug fitting bodice with an open neckline, you can add some insurance so you don't have to slash your lining open like I had to. So basically what I'm going to do here is I am going to, just to give myself a guideline, I'm going to draw a straight line across. Now, this is also a good example of what happens when you don't use gridded paper the way you should be using it. Notice my grid is crooked, or I just traced this neckline onto this scrap and I didn't line up, like the center front with the grid. So now this neckline looks a little crooked. So I apologize for that, but it's a good illustration of, if you're using dotted or gridded paper, make sure you draw your vertical or horizontal guidelines on it and then position your pattern piece on it so it doesn't look crooked like this does. But for this little project here, I'm gonna, it'll be okay. So I just drew this line here because down at the base, I don't have a problem. Nothing is pulling. Where it's pulling is up here. So basically what I want to do is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add fabric like this. And I'm not going to add it to, and actually I'm going to go a little bit low. I'm going to color it in so you can see where I'm adding it, like this. And I'm going to blend back to 0. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to give me more lining this way. Okay, so the fabric doesn't, the outside fabric doesn't get pulled. And the nice thing about that, all right, so you're going to be adding like that. You really don't want to add to the shoulder unless you notice that it's, if you think it's going to pull up higher, I guess you could add a little bit, but then you would have to add a little bit to the back as well. I'm thinking I would keep it just in the front because really where it showed was right here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this in half, lining up my shoulders like this. Now this is where you're going to see that this paper is really crooked, but basically now I'm going to cut this out. And again, I'm going to cut it out so that I'm not adding to the shoulder. I'm just going to add the green in here, or the extra there. Okay, so now when we open this up, you can see that I've added it to both sides and it is symmetrical. So if you're going to make this change to your neckline, do it to half, fold your neckline in half, and then cut it out so you get a good symmetrical addition left to right. You can, that little bit of extra now will keep this from pooling, and then the lining will stay inside like it should. So I hope this little tutorial helps somebody who is working on a lined garment and has a little lining showing along the sides of their open neckline. If you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.